Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Mondays out there across the country. This is the last week of OutKick shows I will be doing this year. So we're going to do a bunch of them, and then I am off for Christmas and New Year's, as I imagine many of you are. We've got both serious, really serious stories. It's an awful weekend. Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele, were murdered by their son at Bondi Beach in Australia. We saw 15 Jewish people slaughtered, and the killer at Brown University is still on the loose, and it appears they have very limited evidence to be able to catch him. We're going to get into all that, much less significantly, but frivolity of football. Chiefs are out of the playoffs. Bills win a huge, substantial victory over the Patriots. Excellent game. Sharon Moore. I talked about this a bunch on Fox News. You may have seen me there, but I have not talked about it on Outkick the Show. And Grandpa Phillip Rivers returns from 5 years retirement to throw a touchdown pass at the age of 44. But I want to start with the Bondi Beach terror attack. Usually on Monday, we start with NFL or college football. So these are such significant stories that it feels strange to go from football to serious stories. So I'm going to start with the serious stories. If you just want football, which I certainly understand, you can skip about the next 10 minutes or so. Bondi Beach, 15 innocent Jewish people were murdered in cold blood by a father and a son terror team. 50-year-old dad, 24-year-old son. I have three boys, 17, 15, and 11. I do a lot of things with them. They're my pride and joy. I cannot conceive of a culture, of a worldview, where a father would take his son to potentially be killed himself while engaging in acts of terror against innocent people. There's profound evil in the world, and it's time, way past time, for all decent people to stand up and confront it. I've been fired up about this since October 7th, 2023. Jews are being massacred because they are Jewish at a level we have not seen since the Holocaust days. People have tried to excuse it by condemning the behavior of Jewish people in Israel and saying, well, this is in some way what they deserve. They're wrong, and people who are arguing that are evil. Look, there is no comparison to what took place on Bondi Beach in Australia. And I have so many thoughts about this. First, Australia is a beautiful country filled with many outstanding people. I was fortunate enough 2 years ago to travel with my family to Australia. We went all over the country. We had an incredible time. Bondi Beach, for those of you who don't know, is in Sydney, Australia. We went there. It's a beautiful place right in the heart nearly of the city of Sydney. And it is, I would say, an equivalent of South Beach in Miami or Santa Monica Pier and Beach in LA, by which I mean it's one of the most famous places in the country, certainly for people who go to the beach. It is probably the most famous beach in all of Australia. And again, if you're an American, it's the equivalent of South Beach in Miami or Santa Monica in Los Angeles, a place that at Venice Beach in Los Angeles, one of these beach communities that is so iconic that it reverberates throughout the larger culture of the country. For there to be a mass shooting there that lasted for, reports are, nearly 20 minutes without anyone other than that one brave, courageous soul that I saw who tackled an armed man and disarmed him, for there to be virtually no opposition from the Australian police, for it to be allowed to continue as long as it did, is indefensible and I think indicative of profound sickness that has begun to afflict and taken over in many Western societies. I'm going to come back to the gun, but I want to tell you about a couple of things that I noticed when I visited Australia. Now, again, I met so many amazing people. I had such an incredible trip. The people of Australia were phenomenally kind to my family. I think it is a country of innate goodness and goodwill that is being taken advantage of. And let me explain what I mean by that. We were there for Christmas and New Year's. In Sydney, for New Year's, they have one of the most spectacular New Year's fireworks displays anywhere in the world. It is beautiful. It is transcendently extraordinary. The very famous Sydney Opera House, the fireworks all explode around it. It is really an incredible experience. I felt very fortunate to be there. Before they began the fireworks on that day, they began by apologizing to the Aboriginal people for stealing their land. That was the opening of the national fireworks display in Sydney. My wife and I toured the Sydney Bridge, one of the spectacular feats of engineering, a huge bridge that connects over the Sydney Bay there, that connects the two sides of Sydney. They have water taxis everywhere. I mean, it really is an amazing city to visit. You're able to climb up on this huge, I believe it's a suspension bridge. I'm not an architect, but I think it's a suspension bridge. I think that's the technical term for it. At the top of and they have a tour where you can climb the bridge and you get to the apex of the bridge, the crown of the bridge, and you're fastened in. And you stand there, and it is a majestic view out all of Sydney Harbor, out all of the distance away. And our tour guide, as I am sure she was trained to do, said, as she began to describe what we were seeing in the vista, in the horizon there, she said, it's important to know that everywhere you look is stolen land. They now have in Australia a National Sorry Day. Sorry, as in we apologize for coming to this country. What they are really apologizing for, what they have convinced many good people in Australia that they should be ashamed of, is Western civilization itself. Because if Australians had not come to Australia in the late 1700s, the land would still be primitive. There would be, in theory, if no European settlers had ever arrived, Europeans had not come to Australia, the land would still be primitive. Most of the people in Australia would be living in squalor and moral and physical decrepitude. Because Western civilization has uplifted all of us, 8 billion people around the world, to levels that would otherwise not exist but for Western civilization. If Western civilization had only stayed located in Western Europe and had never expanded beyond Western Europe, the rest of the world would be irredeemably much worse off than it is today. Now, I'm not saying that the age of exploration was perfect or that there was never depredations or awfulness that occurred as a result. But I am saying to all of you, as we sit here in 2025, we all have the quality of life and luxury that we do in our worlds because of Western civilization, because it has lifted, Western civilization has, many people out of a life of squalor, out of a life of moral decay, out of a short, brutal, and very often violent way of life. Judeo-Christian values brought to bear through Western civilization have been the greatest gift that has ever existed in the history of humanity to the citizens of the world. What we are fighting is people who believe that Western civilization is a bad thing. And one way they are fighting it is by destroying us from within, by having people who live in Western civilization, who are the descendants of the people who created the greatest uplifting voice and tide in the history of civilization. They're making many people out there feel as if they need to apologize for this. And in so doing, they are activating a toxic empathy inside of their bodies. And that toxic empathy leads to a failure to defend Western civilization. And when Western civilization isn't being defended, you end up with infidels who are trying to destroy our way of life, who abhor Western civilization, who show up on the first day of Hanukkah and kill 15 innocent Jews on the first day of Hanukkah in Sydney, Australia. And for people out there who say, I'm American, I don't care about anything else around the world. America first, that's all I care about. You need to understand that what you saw on October 7th, 2023, when innocent Israelis were slaughtered, is actually the front lines of a global battle over Western civilization that is occurring everywhere. Western civilization has triumphed. There is a concerted, calculated, intentional choice being made by a anti-Western civilization worldview to try and take back over the countries that have most benefited from Western civilization. Italy, Germany, England, France, the United States, Australia, Canada. There is an influx of people who do not share Western civilization values, and they are trying to destroy citadels of Western civilization from the inside now due to aggressive, lenient, toxic, oftentimes empathy that has brought people to our shores and into our country that do not share the values that made those countries great and that made human civilization thrive. And so as a dad of 3, when I see this 50-year-old dad take his 24-year-old son to go murder as many people as possible, to give up, in theory, the life of his own son, the only way that can occur is for that father and that son that he has raised and trained, for him to have convinced his son and for him to be convinced himself that they are heroes in an existential battle, potentially never ending, against the forces of Western civilization. There is no similar anti-their worldview perspective. There are not Christians showing up in other countries and becoming citizens so that they can go commit acts of terror on the people who live in those countries. There is not an equivalent to Jewish people going into other countries and deciding that they are going to try and take over their countries and kill people there. It doesn't happen, okay? And so this is a time for choosing. And this is why I've been so outspoken about this, because you have a lot of ignorant, idiot American college kids who have been chanting globalize the Intifada. What we saw in Sydney was globalization of the Intifada. It leads to 10-year-old girls being slaughtered on the first day of Hanukkah. It leads to mass terror. This is what they want. This is what they want to create around the world. And they are internally finding allies who spend a lot of time saying, well, it's not everybody who's Muslim. Okay. But is it enough to destroy the fabric of Western civilization if it's left unchecked? Yes. Yes. Yes, it profoundly is. So evil happened. I woke up on Sunday and looked over at my phone and saw that this had happened at the evening in Australia. I've continued to follow it. It has unfortunately profoundly unsettled me, and continues the echo and reverberations of what we saw on October 7th, 2023, that last year at this time I was on the ground seeing for myself in Israel. I went and saw the Nova Film Festival, the Nova Music Festival, where tons of innocent young people were murdered because they were Jewish. I walked through the kibbutzes. I saw where the families were slaughtered because they were Jewish. And this is not going away. And for everybody out there who talks about being on the right and wrong side of history, this is the most violent time that Jews have faced in the world since the Holocaust. And many of the people who claim that they're on the right side of history are defending the attacks that are raining forth upon Jewish people. I'm not Jewish. As inevitably people are going to hop in the mentions. So you're being paid by, I'm not being paid by anybody in Israel. I don't get any money from anyone outside of the United States. The only place where I get paid right now is my radio show, iHeart, which is a American-owned media company, and I get paid by Fox, which is an American-owned media company. And then I have other assets, other companies that I'm a part of that I either own or I own a substantial stake of, all based in the United States. So the people out there that anytime they hear comments like the ones that I just made, they say, oh, you're bought and paid for by... No, I'm really not. I have never, to my knowledge, received $1 in personal compensation from any company, I don't think, that is based outside of the United States in my entire life. I have never made $1 from anybody who lives anywhere other than in the United States. I think that I'm very confident that that is true right now. I think I've only worked for American corporations and been paid by American dollars. I've never even been paid to speak to any organization outside the United States, to my knowledge. I have received zero compensation. Not that it necessarily should matter, but I'm just saying there is no dollar connection here. I've never been paid by anybody in the Middle East. I've never been paid by anybody in Africa. I've never been paid by anybody in Europe. I have only been paid by American corporations my entire life. And most of the money I made, frankly, in my entire life came when I sold my own American-based corporation to another American-based corporation. So all I'm telling you is we're in a battle for good or evil. And if you are in any way unaware of that, for basic American and Western civilization, for the values that have allowed us to rise up the standard of living of 8 billion people around the world based on the civilizational creations that came out of Western ideals, it's long past time to stop apologizing for any of it. Colonization made the world better. Western civilization made the world better. This idea of identity politics where somehow if your skin is white, you have to constantly be bending the knee and apologizing for things that you never did. This is where it leads to toxic empathy and the murder of innocent people by those who do not share your values and would destroy all of Western civilization if they could. Okay, quickly, the Brown killer, that is not the color, the university killer at Brown is still on the loose. You want to talk about toxic empathy? I don't know how this is possible. I don't know who the killer is. I don't know what their motivations are, but you should not be able to walk into a classroom of a major university campus, open fire, kill 2 people, and wound 9, and put them into put them into the hospital, and not be able to get the shooter and immediately put him in prison. We have no idea who he is. They arrested the wrong guy. They've released 2 videos, despite the fact that there are hundreds and hundreds of cameras all over Brown. And the 2 videos that I watched, you can't tell about anything about the guy other than it appears to be a man, may not even be a man, but appears to be a man, maybe a little bit heavy set in an all-black outfit. Late last night, they came out and said, oh, yeah, we have no idea. It's been over 48 hours since the shooting now. We have no idea who the suspect was. We don't know anything about him. We don't know. We just know we got the wrong guy. I think we got a video of that.
Shortly, we will be releasing the person of interest who had been detained earlier today. And the Attorney General can speak a little bit about the rationale for that. But we want to inform the community that that individual will shortly be released from Providence Police.
All right. So hopefully they will get that guy or gal or person that is involved. But the fact that they have been unable to do so is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. One more awful story until we get to the frivolity of football. Rob Reiner and his wife Michele were murdered. 78-year-old Rob Reiner, 68-year-old wife Michele were murdered by their son Nick. It appears he is currently being held in custody, $4 million bail. I'm surprised there's any bail out there at all. Reports that he stabbed them to death, This, to me, Rob Reiner went on with Piers Morgan. I saw the video. We played it earlier on Clay and Buck and condemned utterly the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Rob Reiner made a series of phenomenal movies back in the 80s and the 90s. Let me pull that up in case you're wondering and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what movies was he involved in? He had a stretch from starting with This Is Spinal Tap in 1984, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men. All of that happened between 1984 and 1992. He was the director of all those movies that I just told you, and he was also the producer of most of them, and he was also a talented writer. And he became a super anti-Trump left-wing zealot in his elderly years, as many people, unfortunately, in Hollywood have become. But I don't particularly care about his politics, much like with Charlie. No one deserves to have a violent act perpetrated against them. And so I feel awful as a dad for Rob Reiner that his son would theoretically have such mental illness that he would lash out and commit this kind of violent act against both of his parents. I hope that the rest of the family is able to eventually get some peace. I did not think that the president of the United States, who I typically agree with on the vast majority of things, but as I always say, I don't agree with anybody on 100% of issues. I didn't think that his post did a good job of condemning what happened, frankly. And what I will say is, in general, I have not seen any celebration on the right over the murder of Rob Reiner, even though most people on the right disagree with him on the issues of politics. Whatever your politics, whether you're Charlie Kirk or Rob Reiner or somewhere in the middle or somewhere outside of either of those guys on the left or the right, nobody deserves to be a victim of violence. And so I am encouraged by the vast majority of people out there not having said anything negative, certainly not have celebrated it, like unfortunately we saw huge numbers of people do in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Okay, pause here for a sec. I'm going to shift into to football here in a moment, but I wanted to say I got some bad news personally this morning. My mom called. My 84-year-old Uncle Kenneth died. He had been fighting cancer for the past 6 to 8 months. We didn't know how long he had to live. He loved college football, loved sports in general, particularly loved the University of Tennessee. His wife, my Aunt Hester, has already passed. He's got one kid left. And he's going to be deeply missed. As a Vietnam War veteran, was in charge in Vietnam of helping to put helicopters back up in the air. He was a top mechanic on helicopters. And I always thought it was interesting. He said that when you worked on helicopters back in Vietnam near the front lines back in the day, that the way they made sure that you did a good job was you had to take the first flight in the helicopter that you put back into service and operation. So he flew all over Vietnam, and he always had a great sense of humor, just an awesome guy. But he said, you really were working hard on a helicopter to get it back in service if you knew that you had to be the first guy up. And I always thought that was an interesting metaphor because to me it represented quality of work and work ethic in general, that you had to put your life on the line in order to go back up in the sky and make sure that those helicopters were back up for and able for all of the soldiers that were going to be on them. So he served overseas in Vietnam. He was a veteran, survived that service. Lots of people who worked on those helicopters did not. A lot of his friends and colleagues in combat were lost, came back home, lived a great life in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Red Bank in particular, spent his whole life as a civilian after that in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. Worked for South Central Bell as a typically he was out repairing lines all over the place in the Hamilton County area, that Chattanooga, Tennessee area. And I loved him greatly, and he will be sorely missed. He was an absolutely incredible guy. So I may be out. I don't know officially when his funeral is going to be, but it was a tough weekend when you look at what happened with all of the loss of life in the public arena, but also cancer. Unfortunately, almost every family out there in America has somebody that has fallen victim to cancer. It's an awful disease that hopefully in the decades ahead we will do a better job of being able to contain and have more and more people be able to survive. But my Uncle Kenneth passed away early this morning at the age of 84. I may be out going to his funeral. All those details are still to be determined. But just FYI, hug and kiss the friends and family that you hold dear, because you never know when it's going to be the last Christmas, the last New Year that you're going to be able to spend with them, as unfortunately we saw in Bondi Beach and as we saw at Brown University and as we just saw in LA. We've all got a time. We don't know when it's going to come, and so try to wring every last ounce out of your lives while you have the ability to do so, and also to tell everybody that is close to you that you care deeply about them and take advantage of the time that you have to spend with all of them. All right. That is all very serious stuff. This is not very serious. It's football. And it is the frivolity of life that many of us use. Certainly my uncle did. Certainly I have, to get away from the serious things in life. So I'll be doing the FS1 show here, diving into some of these stories in more depth. Let me just hit you with some of them that I thought were the most significant coming out of the weekend that we just saw in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs are out of the playoffs, ending the first tier of an incredible dynasty. And let me put into perspective how unexpected this loss from, in addition, Patrick Mahomes tearing his ACL. But first we'll get to the dynasty. This was 10 consecutive playoff appearances, tied for the second longest streak of all time. 10 consecutive 10-win seasons, third longest streak all time in the NFL. 9 consecutive division titles, second longest streak in NFL history. 7 straight conference championship game appearances, snapping the second longest streak since 1970. So the Chiefs missing the postseason and missing it this far out, we still have 3 games left, was totally unexpected coming into the season. And Patrick Mahomes also tore his ACL. We don't know how long it will take him to recover and how well he will be by the time we get back to September and October of next season. Travis Kelce may retire. There will be a lot of changes that come to the Kansas City Chiefs roster. What I would say is, if you look at this in the context of Mahomes and Brady, remember, Tom Brady had a long period of time where he struggled to win championships after an initial sprint of incredible early success in his tenure. And then he had a fallow period, got injured like Patrick Mahomes did, missed an entire season, basically, if I remember correctly, when he took that knee hit. Patriots, I believe, still went 11-5 that year, which was one of the big arguments people had for how good Bill Belichick was as a head coach, was you would point to that year when I think Matt Castle played for the New England Patriots and say, well, even that year when Brady was lost to Belichick, he still won at a high level. if Belichick had retired, that argument might still be out there. It certainly is no longer out there. So the Chiefs are out of the playoffs. The question now going forward, unlikely, I think, that Travis Kelce comes back. Will Patrick Mahomes be able to build a second dynastic run? Because that's what Tom Brady did. He won a bunch of titles, was out for many years, and then won, I believe I'm correct in this, guys, I think he had 4 Super Bowl wins, and then he had like a decade where he didn't win any at all, and then he came back and he won 2 more with the Patriots and 1 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But there was a period in time there where Brady's success was the way that overall broke down. He basically had 2 Hall of Fame careers. The first act of his career and the final act of his career, with a middle period where he put up a lot of numbers, but he actually tended to lose to Peyton Manning, who started to get the better of Brady in their head-to-heads in the middle part of their careers. So that is if I said that the Patriots made the playoffs that year, they did not. They went 11-5, but they were very, very good. And Brady won Super Bowls in 2005, and then he did not win another one. His last Super Bowl in the first tenure was 2005. He did not win another Super Bowl until 2015. So he had like 10 years there. So we will see what happens with Patrick Mahomes going forward as he gets set to turn 30 years old soon, and we'll see how all of that continues for him. Grandpa Phillip Rivers came in at 44 years old and threw a touchdown pass, joining, I believe, Brett Favre as the only 2 quarterbacks ever to have thrown touchdown passes as grandpas. Cool reaction. Phillip Rivers has been a high school football coach down in South Alabama, near where he grew up. I think Phillip Rivers grew up in the Huntsville area, if I'm not mistaken, but I think he's down in the South Alabama area now. This is how the kids on his team reacted when he threw a touchdown pass as a grandpa. Watch this. Super cool there. Let me give you a couple of talking points that will air on the OutKick show, and I will also theoretically dive into this in more earnest tomorrow. Josh Allen, best quarterback in football. I don't think there's any question at all about it. Let me tell you about the best app that is out there in football. It is Prize Picks. You can play it in Texas. You can play it in California. You can play it in Georgia. Go to prizepicks.com right now. Play $5. Use code OutKick. You get $50. I'll have another pick for you guys as we roll into Thursday Night Football and as we roll into the weekend. Should be fun. Go to prizepicks.com. And you can also download the Prize Picks app. Nearly 13 million of you are playing already. You can play in roughly 40 states. Use code OutKick, and when you play $5, you get back $50. You will get hooked up, and you will absolutely love it. So make sure that you do not miss there. Also, Sharon Moore, I'm going to give you a deep dive take on Sharon Moore tomorrow, what exactly I think happened there, and the overall story. I've got to run out for meetings now. I will be back theoretically with you guys tomorrow. If I'm not, it's going to be because I'm at a funeral waiting to see when exactly all of that is scheduled. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Go hug and kiss the people that you love. Make sure that you don't take an opportunity to be with them for granted. And thank all of you for hanging out with me. I do not take that for granted. This has been OutKick, the show.